And here's one of the more high-profile incidents that we've had over the last few weeks. And this is, of course, the ATV incident on Hudson Avenue. And it was through some hard work by detectives in our department that we were able to identify this individual that was involved in this and bring this person to justice. So now this person has to be held accountable for this horrific act that occurred. So I'd give a lot of credit, give all the credit to the hardworking detectives in the Albany Police Department who worked tirelessly to bring closure in this case. And it fits with our closure rate in most of our violent acts in our city. You know, the closure rate across this country is somewhere around 50% for violent acts. Our closure rate in our city is well over 75, going into 80%. So when bad things happen in the city, our detectives do a great job of finding out who they are and bringing those individuals to justice. And that's exactly what we saw in this case here. And then as it pertains to ATVs and illegal dirt bikes in our city, we're working hard. We continue to work hard with our partners to address this issue, take as many of these illegal dirt bikes and ATVs off the streets as we can, and send a message that those sorts of activities in our city will not be tolerated, and there are some consequences for those actions. And here are the statistics with our illegally possessed weapons that have been taken off our streets. And we have more than doubled the amount of confiscations that we had last year at this time. And what's notable about this is we had a record year last year. I mean, we had a percentage increase that was more than we had seen in recent history last year. And so far this year, we've doubled that pace. And so what that means is that we are taking away the means to commit violence in this community. We can't prevent every single act of violence in our city, but every single one of those illegally possessed weapons that have been taken off our streets could have been used to cause further trauma in this community, cause death in this community. And so we've got to be careful that we don't understate exactly what this means, because this is critically important, that we do all that we can to take away the means of violence in our city. Over 80% of homicides nationally and within the city of Albany are committed with illegally possessed handguns. And our officers have done a fantastic job of zeroing in on this issue and taking away this means of death and destruction and trauma that we've seen in this community with these illegally possessed handguns. And here is just a sample. Our detectives that brought these in, and we're thankful for them for the time that they took out of their day to gather these illegally possessed weapons that we've confiscated, to show the type of weapons that we see in our community, the type of things that are causing so much trauma and death in our community. And we're taking these off the street at a rate that is unprecedented. So I'm extremely proud of the work that our officers are doing out in our streets, of keeping our streets and helping our streets become safer. And with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Chief. And I want to commend the department for the arrests that have been made just in the time between our last briefing and today. It is by closing these cases and ensuring that people are held accountable that we are able to reduce crime. When we are able to take the relatively small number of people who are engaging in illegal activity and violent activity off the streets and hold them accountable, our city becomes safer. And I can't overemphasize how important it is that we continue to get illegal guns off the streets. We've seen far too many of these guns used in crimes. We've seen far too many of these guns used and handled by juveniles. And we have to ensure that we're continuing to fight illegal guns in our city. There are those who say that a criminal will find a gun anyway, and that, all these efforts to try to enforce and enact stricter gun laws won't stop criminals. But this police department can tell you that it absolutely does stop criminals. When we're able to remove these guns from the streets, we are able to ensure that people do not have ready access to deadly force. And that is just a fact. It used to be so much harder to obtain these guns, but now we are seeing guns that continue to come into our community. The time to crime, when you have a gun that is used within a crime within a year of purchase, you're finding that that gun was purchased by somebody who purchased 15 or 20 guns. That's gun trafficking. That's what is happening. And so it's incredibly important that we work and that we continue to work in the city of Albany to get these guns off the streets. The difference between what we saw 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and today, the chief will tell you, and our officers will tell you, is the number of people carrying weapons. And so we want to get the message out to the community that guns don't make us safer. We want to get the message out to people who come into this city or who in this city commit violent acts, that we have a department that is laser focused and has the tools necessary to ensure that we find individuals who engage in this activity and we arrest them and we bring them to justice. So it's as we enter the summer season, I think when you look at the incredible success rate that this department has had, success breeds more success. And as we continue to see how the tools and strategies that we've implemented are working, we are going to continue to see the safety on our streets grow. And the numbers are moving in the right direction. We always still have work to do. We encourage people, call Crime Stoppers. If you know someone who is illegally possessing a gun, call us. You can call anonymously. We want to ensure that we're doing all that we can to keep our streets safe this summer. I also want to stress the fact that this summer, we're back to pre-COVID levels of enrollment in our summer youth employment program, which is great news for young people in the city. Not only is it an opportunity for them to earn some money, but it's an opportunity for them to engage in an enrichment program that focuses on helping and ensure that our young people see themselves in their future and understand what they need to do in order to stay on track to achieve their hopes and dreams. And so those efforts and the efforts of our Department of Recreation are going to ensure that we have safe spaces and safe places for young people. We want to ensure that they're engaged in healthy activities focused on their future. And I want to also thank the police department. They do a police academy every summer for young people. And it is always so great to see our young people graduate from that program, so proud of what they've accomplished. Thank you.
Take any questions if you have them. Yes.
Chief, do you have the identification of the latest homicide victim?
Yes, that's 36-year-old Quan Lillard, Lillard.
Chief, you mentioned the arrest, which was great, of the UAlbany students in the dirt bike, and you seized all of those ATVs and dirt bikes in the month of May. Is there anything else you think that the department should be doing in order to crack down and prevent another Alexis Croft? And is there anything else that you would need to do any new measures, like any legislation or help from the public?
Well, I think the partnerships that we've established already with our local and regional law enforcement agencies is absolutely critical, and it worked in this case. We said all along that we suspected that this was a regional issue, and we're starting to learn that that's in fact the case. You know, this individual who was involved in this case was not from Albany. And we have some evidence that there are others who are in our city engaging in these sorts of acts with these vehicles, illegally operating these vehicles that aren't from here. And so, so for the first part of your question, I think it's important that we continue with the partnerships that we have with other regional law enforcement agencies to address this. And our sheriff's department is one of those partners. We have other connections with other local law enforcement agencies to share information when these things are happening in other jurisdictions, and that's absolutely critical. I'll let the mayor talk about any legislative issues that may be important.
So just like drinking and driving is illegal, just like exceeding the speed limit is illegal, it is illegal to ride a ATV, including dirt bikes, in the city of Albany. It is against the law. And the challenge with dirt bikes, as you know, we've seen sometimes when people flee in a car after they're pulled over by the police, is that it's very dangerous when police seek to pull over these dirt bikes. But there's this myth out there that the police don't pull over dirt bikes. Our police always attempt to stop these vehicles. That is that they will attempt to stop them. It's when the vehicles speed up, go on sidewalks, and endanger the public that they will end that pursuit. And we have other methods that the police use, including cameras. We have other tools and means available to us that will pursue that vehicle and count the number of violations. I believe the individual who struck the college student was issued 60 some tickets. So they were issued those tickets because they were able to track how many motor vehicle violations that individual engaged in. And so when you're able to do that, then when there is a safe time to be able to ticket that individual, either the vehicle has come to arrest, we get an address, we get a warrant, then we will go and arrest that individual and charge them with those crimes. So I think that it's very important for the public to understand you might not see that ultimate resolution when that dirt bike is flying down your street. And believe me, I live in Arbor Hill. I see it all the time, much less, as a matter of fact, last year, and even less now this year than in the past. But when you see it, you may not see the outcome of that. But that is not something that we are just letting slide by. And so I think that's a really important message to the community. Call in, let us know. It is really important that you do that. And the other thing is, many of these bikes are being ridden by people who store them in the city of Albany, but live outside the city. And so if you know that these bikes are being stored somewhere in an alley, if all of a sudden, you know, there's a garage that's been broken into, and you're as a neighbor, you see that there are a bunch of dirt bikes in there, call Crime Stoppers. If we can seize these vehicles, if they're stolen, if we know they've been used in violations, then we can seize them and take them off the streets. So I want the public to know that while you might not have that immediate gratification of seeing a dirt bike pulled over and the arrest made, it's important to call us. It's important to know that we realize, I mean, this horrific incident, it demonstrates this is not just a quality of life issue. This is a public safety issue, and we take it seriously.
Yes. Chief, when it comes to the number of guns seized this year and in past years, can you give us a general idea of where these guns are coming from? Is there a specific state that a large number are coming from? Are these bought outside the county and coming from other parts of New York? Is there any information you can give us on that?
So the majority of the weapons, illegally possessed weapons that we confiscate, come from outside the state of New York. And we see a lot coming from southern states that have lax gun laws. We see some that are being stolen from as far away as Las Vegas and making their way into New York. So so that's why it's important for us to maintain these relationships with, for example, the ATF in this instance, because they have the ability to track and to prosecute and to follow and to establish where these weapons are originating from, especially when they're coming outside of the state of New York. And we have some great partnerships at that level. And it's very tough for them. We meet on a regular basis with the local heads of the ATF. We have officers who are embedded in the ATF. We've had an opportunity to have a conversation, a private conversation with the individual who oversees the ATF for the entire country. And what we have found is that they don't have a whole lot of answers with this either. Everybody knows what the problem is. They know that they're coming from many different places around the country and making their way into urban areas all across the country. But how to stop this flow is something that's really perplexed our federal law enforcement agencies, and it's very frustrating for the local law enforcement agencies because they're coming from other places. And so we've identified the major source right now and where they're coming from. But now the critical question is, how do we work better with our federal law enforcement agencies to try to stem this flow coming into our cities?
The guns that you have seized, are you seizing, like, what I'm trying to get at is, are you getting one or two at a time? Are you finding large stashes of guns when you're executing warrants related to other crimes? Or is it, can you give me a picture of what that looks like?
And it's a little bit of both. This year, we've had a large confiscation where we had, I believe it was 25 or so that were confiscated at one time. We've had another large confiscation also. But we also get them, they just kind of flow in one at a time, two at a time. We get them at domestics, for example. Sometimes we get them in places where you wouldn't expect for an officer to run into an illegally possessed weapon. We get them out of when individuals have actually been engaged in violent acts or threatening acts. We get a lot of tips from the public, and that's what's very, very important for us. So we want to make sure that we let our community know that the help that they have given us in this has been invaluable. There's been many times where we get an anonymous call from someone saying that they see somebody right now with a gun on the street in front of my place, and he or she is wearing certain type of clothing, and they give it to us. We get there, sure enough, we stop the person, and they've got a gun on them. So we get it from a variety of different places, but it's it's important. Number one, we maintain these partnerships that we have with our local and federal law enforcement partners, but we continue to have these partnerships and collaborations with members of our public in our community that have helped us out tremendously with this as well.
This seems like a basic question, Chief, but why do you have these briefings periodically? Why do you have them?
I think it's important for the members of this community to get facts and to know exactly what's happening. A lot of times when things happen, it's a headline or it's a rumor, or they're hearing it third or fourth person type of thing. And so I think it's important that they hear directly from the police department, directly from the mayor's office, what we're seeing, what our challenges are, how we plan to address the challenges. Here are successes. So many times when something happens, people hear the bad stuff. They hear when there's a shooting. They hear when there's a homicide. They hear when someone gets hurt. And that information absolutely needs to get out. But members of our community don't often hear before our press briefings, situations where they know that we're taking, over 100 guns off the streets so far this year, which, by the way, pre-COVID, by this time, pre-COVID, we had only confiscated around 100 weapons. And so that just gives you an idea of the pace that we're taking these weapons off the streets. They need to hear that. They need to hear some, the media represents, some questions that people in the community have, and we can get that information out through the media. But I think more the critical piece of these briefings is for people to hear exactly what's happening in our city and exactly how we plan to address our challenges, and also to hear our successes that we're having. Yes, sir.
Chief, you spoke earlier, you mentioned, that the statistics showed a more targeted nature of the shootings this year. Can you clarify a little bit about what you mean and what your officers are seeing in those investigations that would lead you to that conclusion?
Yeah, so the data, and when we take a deeper dive into what's happening with our homicides and our non-fatal shootings, it's telling us that these are more targeted type issues. These are people who know each other, or someone who got into a fight at a bar and it just spiraled out of control. And, so it's the interpersonal nature of it. So we kind of knew that. But what the data is telling us, when we see a situation where we have a high number of confirmed shots fired, but a low number of shooting incidents, then that kind of tells us that it's kind of sporadic. It may be, for example, drive-by shootings where people aren't being shot, or just sporadic shootings that we have. But if we have a situation where we have a lower number, if the confirmed shots fired are decreasing at the rate that they're decreasing in our city, but the shooting incidents, meaning people getting shot, are increasing slightly, what that tells us is that these fewer shootings are resulting in more people getting shot, which is an indicator that these are targeted shootings. Fewer shootings, more people getting shot. All right, thank you.